Good evening and good afternoon to all of you from wherever you are joining us today. Before we start today's session, please feel free to do check-in. This will give you access to additional resources and information about events that we are running on Reactor, which are around similar topics to today's session. I will share the event check-in link on the Q&A section soon. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor. The session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. This session is being recorded and will be made available to watch on demand on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the Q&A section shortly. Quick word on our code of conduct. We display this at all Microsoft Reactor events that we run and is just a reminder to be aware of other. The key thing to take out here is to be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Ashirwad, our speaker for today's session. Ashirwad works as a software developer in the leading IT firm. He is an active blogger in the C# Corner developer community. He has also been awarded for C# Corner Most Valuable Professional for his contributions to the developer community. But for now, I will hand over to Ashirwad to begin the session. Over to you, Ashirwad.
Thank you, Rasmita, for a warm welcome, and thank you everyone for joining in for today's session. So just give me a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So can someone just confirm that you are able to see my screen?
Yes, Ashirwad, we can see your screen.
Thank you. So let's get started. So in today's talk, we are going to discuss about building event-driven low-code serverless solutions using Azure Logic App. So this is Ashirwad, the speaker for today's talk. So I work as a software engineer. I'm a Microsoft certified Azure developer associate, and most of my work is related to ASP.NET Core. I primarily develop ASP.NET Core web APIs. So apart from that, I am also a community organizer. I organize events for a few other communities. So some of them are Serverless for Nature, Authentication Forum, and Azure Developer Community for Nature. So if you want to connect with me after today's talk, you can, these are the links using which you can, connect with me. And this is my Twitter handle. You can always connect with me over there if you want to discuss anything about today's talk or anything serverless. So let's look at the agenda for today's talk. So we're going to start with discussing, what is serverless. Then we're going to have an overview about Azure Logic App. Then we are going to briefly discuss about actions, connectors, and triggers, which are the basic components of the Logic App. Then we are going to have a demo on action and triggers. Then we are going to go through a problem statement, which we are going to solve using Azure Logic App. And finally, we have the Q&A. And let's get started. So what is serverless? So feel free to chime in if you want to say. So what is serverless according to you? Okay, since you people are not saying, according to me,
Ashirwad, it is more of like low code and less server stuff, like where we are not touching server more. So we are not doing more things onto the server. We are just deploying our code, or we are just doing our stuff over there. We are not worrying about the server parts of it. So that's serverless in my terms.
that's somewhat correct indeed. So may I know your name?
Ashirwad, this is Mayank.
Thank you, Mayank. This was a pretty close answer. So yes, serverless means that you don't need to worry about the management of your whole code's infrastructure. You have built your application, you have tested it, and you want to deploy it. During the deployment, there are so many things that you need to take care of. Like you need to take care of the whole server infrastructure. You need to make sure that there is zero downtime associated with your servers, and it just scales up whenever the application needs to scale up to meet the demands. It also needs to scale up. So these are some of the some of the features that are associated with a serverless application. So according to me, a serverless solutions should have these three components. One of them being stateless. It shouldn't store the state, because if you want to be truly serverless, you cannot store the state as the state of the application in a particular what do you say, inside a particular server, because every time your work is done, the server is turned off, or it just goes out, or deprovisions itself. So you don't have that. So the other thing is it's event driven. Depending on the task, or whenever a particular event happens, your application should run. It shouldn't run always on the server. That's additional cost, and you don't want it in a serverless solution, right? You only want your code to run every time there is a necessity for this code to run. You don't want it to run every time and just occupy your memory and space inside your servers. So the next thing is micro billing. So with serverless solutions, you're billed per second or per millisecond, depending upon your vendor, or the serverless offering that you're using from a specific vendor. So in Azure, you have this micro billing concept for Azure Functions, Logic Apps, and other. So every time your code runs or runs for a certain amount of time, and it consumes certain amount of compute, you're only charged for that. You're not charged for for deploying your application, or you're not directly charged for the whole month in advance. You're only charged for the time your application is actually running in the environment. So that's about micro billing. So I hope we all are clear about what is serverless. So what are some of the serverless offerings of Azure? So one of them is Azure Functions. That's one of my favorite services, which I use most of the time. So if you are a developer, you want to write code, then you are very much open to use Azure Functions. They provide you many triggers, and you have these bindings to connect and connect to different data sources and execute your task or solve a particular business case that you wanted to solve. Then this Logic App. So if you're not a developer, or else you are a developer but you don't have extensive experience with the programming languages, you just want to get your work done, and you just want a drag and drop kind of a scenario where you can drag and drop a few things and get your work done inside a workflow, then yeah, Logic App is a thing. So today we are going to extensively discuss about Azure Logic App. So there's one more service out there. So this Azure Event Grid. So this is another service that that Azure has, which is completely serverless. There are a few other services too, like you have a serverless type for your Azure SQL DB, and there's one for Cosmos DB. There are many serverless services that are being added every month. So keeping count with that is pretty difficult. So these are the three services which you can use to integrate or run your code and solve a particular business case. So let's discuss about Azure Logic Apps. So what is Azure Logic App? Okay, so the first thing is Azure Logic App is an iPaaS. So it's an integration service. So what does it mean? It means that it provides you a mechanism in which you can connect to multiple sources, process some data from there, and store it in a different data source or a destination. So it's more like if you wanted to process some of your tutor data, all the data that you get from your, suppose, okay, let me give an example. So suppose there's a scenario in which you want to get all the tweets that mentions your profile name or your tutor name. So you want to process all of that, but all these data are there with Twitter. So the thing is, you want to get all those data and store it inside an non-relational database like Cosmos DB. How do you do that? So Azure Logic App provides you with all the components using which you can get all this data from your from Twitter and store it in a NoSQL database using connectors provided by the respective organizations or services. Like Twitter has its own connector using which you can get all the tweets that mentions you or your profile name or has a tag with your name, and then you can get all of them and store it inside a Cosmos DB or it's a sequence DB. If you want to process it, you can use an Azure function in between, which will process it out in a structured way and store it in a SQL database. So that's one example for iPaaS. The next it has a per action billing. Like I told you that every serverless solution has this one particular feature that is per action billing. So what does per action billing means? So your Logic App consists of multiple actions. Like in the agenda, if you remembered, I had a particular section called connectors, actions, and triggers. So our Logic App consists of multiple actions. So actions can be anything. So actions can be like get a tutor, get all the tweets from a particular timestamp, or else, if you are talking about a blob storage connector that is provided in Logic App, that can have multiple actions like create a blob, store a blob, or get a list of all the blobs that are there inside a container. So these are all actions. So every time one of these actions is being run, then only you'll be charged. Unless if your Logic App is sitting idle doing nothing, it is not being triggered, then you won't be charged. So that is about per action billing. So next is highly scalable. This is a serverless service, and it can meet any demand that arises to it. So it's enterprise grade. So if you want to make enterprise grade solutions within this, then you can obviously do that. It has more than 200 plus connectors. So and the number of connectors also keeps rising. So connectors are like, you have a particular API. So you are a SaaS vendor, you have your own services, you have your API. Suppose you wanted to give let some developers access your access your APIs, perform some of the actions, like Twitter has their own APIs and everything. So these APIs come in a wrapper called connector. So these connectors have all these APIs as actions or triggers. So even if Azure doesn't has your connector, you can also build your custom connector. So that is about the extensible feature that Azure Logic App comes with. You can even if your connector is not there, even a connector doesn't is not there which satisfies your need, you can create its own custom connector with Logic Apps. So next is write once and reuse often. So what does that mean? So it's more of like, if you have a workflow ready which we have built using Azure Logic Apps, and you want to reuse it somewhere else, then you can obviously do that. So you don't need to you will not have to create the whole workflow again, then reuse it, then do the stuff. So you can reuse it often. It's really easy to build these Logic App using the Logic App Designer. So Logic App Designer is the tool using which you can design your own Logic Apps by creating a workflow with all the connectors and connections. uh, what are workflows? Like I had mentioned in the previous slide, that you can prepare the whole workflows using connectors and all the actions and triggers that you have. So what are workflows? So workflows can be any business process or a sequence of tasks that produce a specific result. Quite a book's definition. So if you can see at the diagram over there, it has a circle, then it goes through a rhombus, then again a circle, then a rectangle. So these are steps. Every business requirement that we are trying to solve goes through particular set of steps in a sequential order. So how do you do that? So we can define all these, what we say, all the business requirement that we have. Suppose in our previous case, we had the first task was to get all the tweets that mention you. Then you need to process it and store it in a NoSQL database like Cosmos DB. So how do you do that? First, you will get all the tweets that mention your name from Twitter using the Twitter connectors. Then you will process it. Then the last step would be to store everything in a Cosmos DB. So this was the requirement. This is how the flux go. So in this particular order, you have to specify your actions to get the desired outcome. So this is a workflow. Or in layman terms, if you want to see, you want to cook an omelet, how do you cook your omelet? Like there are certain steps that are associated with, like you need to chop all the onions, then you need to mix it up, then you need to break the egg, then mix up the omelet, then put it in a tawa or a pan, put some oil, then after 5 or 6 minutes, after it has roasted out, you can just have it up. So these are the steps. So this is basically what a workflow is. So some of the key terminologies in which are associated with the Logic App. So before diving deeper, we need to know about these terms so that we can understand when we are going through the demo to solve the problem statement. So what are connectors? So connectors are kind of a wrapper of all the APIs exposed by a particular service provider or a vendor. Like it is a collection of all the actions and triggers. So provided by a particular API service provider. So it's more like I was taking the example of Twitter. So Twitter gives you a lot of what we say actions, like you can get the name of the person who tweeted a particular tweet, or else you can get the username of the particular user, who has mentioned this particular tweet with a particular hashtag or something like that. or you can also trigger, like every time a tweet is being made with a particular hashtag, you can just start your workflow whenever something comes up like that. So a connector is a mix of triggers and actions. So what are triggers? So in the title of today's talk, we have mentioned something like building event-driven low-code serverless solutions in Logic Apps, right? So what is a trigger? Trigger is something is anything which just starts when a particular event happens. So an event can be anything. So it's moreover like if someone knocks your door and you open it. It's moreover like the event here to open the door is knocking the door. So whenever someone knocks the door, you're gonna open it. Unless somebody knocks it, you're not gonna open it, right? So that's moreover like trigger. So the next thing is action. So what are actions? Actions are a set of tasks that you are supposed to do. So like in the previous example I gave you, that you need to store all the data gathered from Twitter inside a Cosmos DB. So storing the data in the Cosmos DB is an action, as well as getting the data from Twitter according to our requirement is again an action. So these are individual actions. So there's one thing that I want you people to keep a note of, that all connectors don't have triggers, but they do have actions. So there's one more thing called control workflow. So since with Logic App we are building workflows, you need to have a capability to what we say handle the way the flow of our program is going on. So it's moreover like if you want to go through a condition, we have an if else, and if you wanted to iterate through a I'm sorry, if you wanted to iterate through a particular set of what we say results and do some task on it, then we have a for each loop for that. I'm sorry. So these are the type of tasks that you will need to do. So you can do that using these control flow actions, like for each if else, to break the flow of your program as far as you need and control them. So this is about control workflow. We are going to briefly discuss about them in the next slide. So what are connectors? We have discussed about it. So there are two types of connectors. One is built-in, the other is managed. So what are built-in connectors? So built-in connectors are natively available in Azure Logic Apps, and you don't need to create a connection to use them. Some of them can be run on custom requirements, like we have a particular connector called HTTP, or it's a request one in which you can configure you'll get an what do we say, a webhook kind of a thing, which will be generated whenever you see the workflow after adding the particular action, and whenever you send a request to this particular webhook URL, then your Logic App will start executing. So this runner custom and advanced schedule is more like you want to run your workflow on a particular what do we say, particular interval or a well-defined interval. So you can have something like a recurrence trigger to do that. So you have some default connectors, and the control workflows that I have mentioned comes inside these built-in connectors. So you can receive and respond requests. That's one of the examples that I gave you. It also has an action to called Azure Functions from inside and Logic App. Suppose you have some custom code which you are unable to write inside your Logic App. So there is a complex operation that you want to do. Like in our case, it was more like converting the whole unstructured data into a structured format. The data that was coming from Twitter in a structured format to store in a SQL database. So this is a complex operation. You cannot do it inside a Logic App. This is not feasible. So what you can do is that you can send the data to a Azure function. So inside the function, you can wrangle the data, convert it into a structured format, then give it back a response, and that response will be given to a SQL Server database, or else from the function itself you can do that. So with function you have that particular ability to build complex solutions using Logic Apps. So the other type is managed connector. So these are deployed and managed by Microsoft. So these provide you with triggers and action for accessing cloud services, on-premises system, or both. So these services can be the Twitter, for example, the Twitter connector, or else like we have one for Outlook, there's one for Gmail, And there are many other services. You can connect it, connect yourself with an what do you say, MSN weather services to get the weather data, and many more. You can also connect with S3 buckets. You can you have a trigger to start your workflow whenever a particular a file is uploaded inside an S3 bucket. You can start your workflow with that, or else you have some data, some files in your blob storage, and you want to move it to an S3 bucket. You can just do it with a what we say, with a create file inside the S3 bucket kind of an action to do that. So there are multiple things you can do it. So suppose actions and triggers for services like Office 365, Azure Blob Storage, SQL Server, Dynamics, Salesforce, SharePoint, etc. So this was about connectors. We'll see a few examples of that. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have one for schedule, which will run every time in a given interval, in a specified interval that you are defined while adding the action. Then there's one on HTTP. It creates a webhook kind of a thing. There's moreover, it's pretty similar to an HTTP triggered functions, but you can write way complex things within HTTP triggered Azure function in comparison to this. It just triggers the workflow. So kind of that. So you have a request response with the HTTP, action built-in connector. You don't have a particular action to return a response, but with this request one, you have a mechanism to accept the request and then give back a response. So there's one for Azure API management too. Those also comes inside the built-in ones. So in the managed one, we have one for Azure Service Bus, one for SQL Server. So every time something comes inside your Azure Service Bus queue or topic, you want to start the workflow, you can absolutely do that. Or else after your workflow is completed, suppose you want to push the data inside the Service Bus because you have some other mechanism at the end, some other service which is going to again pick up the message from the Service Bus queue or topic to send somewhere else. So you have these actions and triggers to do that. You can also write inside SQL Server using this action provided by the SQL Server connector. You can also connect with your Office 365 Outlook accounts, like if you want to send a mail, or else if you want to start a workflow whenever you receive a mail or something like that, you can do that. You can also connect with SharePoint Online using the Dynamics connector, I guess. So next about triggers. So what are triggers? A trigger is an event that occurs when a specific set of conditions is satisfied. So if something happens, like in my example, when someone knocks my door, I'm going to open it, right? So that was the event for me. So triggers are activated automatically when conditions are met. So every time every time somebody does something which meets the condition for the trigger to fire, then it'll just fire up. So that was a trigger. There are multiple triggers there that are supported in Logic App. One is on recurrence one. Suppose if you want to run your workflow in a given interval, you can use the recurrence trigger. Suppose you want to start your workflow when a particular application or a user sends an HTTP request to your Logic Apps endpoint, then you can use a when a HTTP request is received action from that is available in the request connector. Then there's one for Azure API management. So and there are a lot many connectors for from different vendors and services, right? So there is one for Adobe Creative Cloud too. So every time you are adding an asset, you can start up your workflows. And as I mentioned before, so if you're adding an object or a file inside an S3 bucket, or if it is being updated, you can also fire your workflow. Though it is not in preview right now, it's on GA, this particular trigger. There's one for Azure queues as well. So every time there is a message that goes into your queue, your workflow can just start and pick the message that was there in the queue and process it inside the workflow. So there are multiple types of triggers, like our connectors and actions. There are different types of triggers. So one type of trigger is recurrence trigger. So this trigger runs on a specified schedule. It is not associated with a particular service, and it's quite independent. Example of that would be a schedule trigger. So it's more like it just you have to define the interval in which it needs to run, and it'll just start running. Then there's another type of trigger, which is a polling trigger. So what is a polling trigger? So these kind of triggers are more like these are triggers which are provided by other vendors. So it's more like in Twitter there is a particular what we say trigger which runs whenever a particular tweet is being tweeted, which has a particular mention of a user or a hashtag or a text content. What happens is that it doesn't instantly fires. You need to go back and check, whether something happened again and again, to see if a particular tweet was tweeted with all the conditions that you have mentioned. So that is an example of a pulling trigger. It doesn't happen as instantaneously, and it is dependent to a particular service. So it is quite service specific. These are pulling triggers. Then there's push trigger. So this an example of a push trigger is something like the when HTTP request is received kind of a trigger that is offered by the request connector, or else every time someone hits my URL, start the workflow. So that's an example of a push trigger. So that was enough about triggers. So let's learn about actions. What are actions? The action is an operation that executes a task in your business process. Again, a bookish definition. So actions can be anything, like talking is an action. Doing, typing something can be an action. So in Logic App, there are multiple actions provided by different connectors. So one of them is the response one. So with the response action, what you do is that whenever your trigger is fired in the trigger, when a HTTP request is received, trigger is fired, you get the data from the request body. You want to send back a message from using the data that was there in the request body. You can do that and give back a response using this particular action called response action. Then there's one particular action called choose an Azure Functions. Like I had mentioned before, that you can always add an Azure Functions to do a complex task in your workflow. So the action to do that, to add an Azure function inside your Logic App, is choose an Azure Functions. So using this action, you can add a Logic App to process or do some complex operation that you have inside your workflow with that, and give back the response to the next Logic App action to process the workflow. The next is current time. This particular action gives you the current time, then get S3 object content. So, if you want to get the content of a particular file that is there in S3 bucket, you can also get that using this particular action. You can create a blob inside a blob storage using the create blob actions. And you can also start in web app. Isn't that exciting? Suppose you have you have a scheduled downtime, and you want to turn off your web app to reduce your cost. So how do you do that? You don't need a person to manually do that at the end of the day, all the time. What you can do is that create a workflow using Azure Logic App and define a recurrence trigger, in which you said, every 12 hours you're going to turn it off. Then after a 3 hours gap, you're going to start your web app on again. So you can always do that using Logic Apps. So you can also create a file inside box or else Dropbox. There are multiple actions to do such operations. So enough with all the theory. Let's get started. The demo on triggers and actions. So what we are going to do now? So we are going to build a workflow to send an email. So let's go to Azure portal. I created a resource group. There's absolutely nothing. So let's get started by creating a Logic App. So to create a Logic App, click on Create. Search for Azure Logic App. Okay. And enter. And let's get somewhere else. Just give me Logic Apps. Okay, there is Logic Apps. So I already have a few set of Logic Apps with me. I'm going to create a new one on consumption tab. So I'm going to select the resource group at RGMSFT actor. So this is nothing but a simple resource group. This is quite empty. So I'm going to give it a name. There's Logic App email workflow. Let's not bother about this. These are advanced topics which we'll be covering in a later talk. So let's click on review plus create to just create a Logic App fly, and it will just do some validation checks. And then if it's good, then it's going to allow us to click on create a logic app. So when the logic app is actually deployed or it is provisioned, that it will have an empty template. You need to customize the whole workflow, but there are some task specific templates which come out of the box. So we'll have a look at that in a while. So let's click on go to resource to go to our logic app resource which we had just created. So if you see, just give me a moment. So let's go to logic app designers to see how it looks. So by default, you can start with some of the default templates that are there that are offered by Azure Logic Apps. So one is, and when a message is received in a service bus queue, this uses a polling trigger, or else when a HTTP request is received. So what happens is that let's when somebody hits your particular webhook that will be generated after you save this particular workflow, if somebody hits or sends a request to this particular endpoint, then your workflows get started. So we're not going to start with the template. We are going to start with a blank logic app, then add our templates. So by default, you need to have one trigger, at least one trigger in your logic app. You cannot have more than that too. So you're bound to have one particular trigger. So you can select a trigger over here. So you can see that there are multiple built-in triggers, and there are some standard, enterprise, and custom. Okay, so we are going to start with the built-in one. So I'm going to click on request connector. So here there would be some triggers, some actions. So since we want to, in this particular demo, we want to send an email every time somebody hits the request to our logic app endpoint. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to add this particular trigger. Here we have to define our request body response, though it is completely optional, but I want to send an email from on the basis of the email that is mentioned in the logic app. Sorry, that is mentioned in the request body of our request. So I'm going to take two things. I'm going to take name, and I'm going to take an email. So click on done. So this will generate the request body JSON schema for this particular action. So once you do that and save, then click on add. Since we want to send an email, there are a few connectors using which you can send an email. So one of them is the Gmail one, and the other one is the Outlook one. Let's go with the Outlook one. You can see there are some triggers over there for this connector. So it's like when a new email arrives, you can start your workflow. You can do a lot many things. Similar to that, you have a lot many actions, like you can create a contact, delete a contact, send a mail, get attachment. So I'm gonna search for the action that is to send a mail. So send an email is the action that I was looking for. So I'm gonna select that. Now you'd be asked to sign in using your Outlook account, so that it can authenticate you as an what do we say, valid user, and create a connection for a logic app to use it. So let's wait a while. Ask me to allow logic apps to perform certain set of actions. So I'm going to select this particular account. So I'm given all the privileges to logic app to send mails and do other stuff. So here you can see that I am accepting two type of data from the request body. So one is name and the other is email. So I want to send the email to the user whose name is mentioned in the email part of our request body. So you can get all this contents inside the dynamic content tab. So here you can see that I have an email. I'm going to select that, and then for the subject. Okay. Then for the subject, I'm going to say testing. Okay, I'm just going to hide it. I'm not able to see the heights. Okay. Okay, let's give it as testing, and then go back to the subject. In the subject, I'm going to add this particular name. Like I'm going to say hello, and the name that was sent in the request body of our HTTP request, that is sent by the user. So as you can see, I don't have the endpoint yet. So this endpoint will be generated when I save this workflow. So I'm going to click on save, and then you can see that it has generated the URL. So this is the URL. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open Postman to send this request. Just give me a moment. Should be opening in a while. Okay. Sorry for the delay because of Postman. My system is a bit slow. Kindly bear with me. Okay. Once Postman is ready and is happy to work around a bit and help us in our task, we are going to create an request over here in Postman. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add a new request over here. And I'm not going to bother about the name. I'm just going to get this particular URL. And since it's a post URL, let's define it as post. And paste the URL over there, and then the request body, mention this as raw and text it as JSON. Then define the name and email address. I'm going to name as Ashirwad and send the mail to my mail address. And let's send a request and see whether I'm going to get a mail or not. So it was accepted, and to see whether our Logic app actually ran or not, we can go to the overview section and then see the run history. Also trigger history, so how many times our function was triggered, whether it failed or what happened, and the run history over here. So it's available inside the overview section. Then go to this particular tab over here, this particular section over here. So on the run history, you'll be able to see that. And if you wanted to see what worked and what didn't, or else how the whole thing, how the flow happened, you can also see that over here. So just let me open my Gmail account and see whether I received a mail or not. As you can see, I have received a mail. Hello, Ashirwad, with the name I had provided in the request body. So it's easy, right? You can build APIs very quickly with Logic Apps, but you can't write complex APIs, at least with them. So let's move on to the slides and look at the problem statement. So that was a slide demo to give a look and feel about Logic Apps. So this is the problem statement that we are actually trying to solve in this particular talk. So the problem statement is something like this: we are working at a startup which has a task of collecting people's views on various Okay, so it has a task of collecting people's view on various government schemes and social welfare programs. So you have a fleet of employees who have been gathering this information from the ground. Gathering the feedbacks from all the people from different villages, from across India, from different states. But after you came to know that the reports that were being stored, you're generating all this report, what do we say, all this data of people's feedback on different schemes, and store it as a report for each particular feedback that you receive from each people. You store it as a report inside a blob storage. So after you came to know that these reports are written in different languages. In India, we speak different languages, right? Like I'm staying in Odisha, so I speak Odia. So some people who's staying in Tamil Nadu may be speaking Tamil. Someone who's staying in Delhi or Uttar Pradesh may be speaking Hindi. So we are a country with diversity. We have diversity in everything, right? So people speak different languages just a few kilometers apart. So this problem was bound to come, but due to the what do you say, due to some issue with our vision, we were unable to point it out at the beginning, but we came to know about that. So some of the suggestion that our team provided us with was that, to hire a few folks, from each of these states who know these languages to, transcript everything back to English, you know. So the task was like, we have, what do we say, we have a centralized repository where we store all the feedbacks which are written in different languages. Now our task was to, rewrite all of those reports in English, which were not written in English. Okay. So the task was pretty simple. We hired folks who can just who can translate all these scripts from the by picking each report from the centralized repository. But the problem was again that you haven't stored in a structured way, like you haven't stored the feedbacks as per the state or else as per the language that they are written in. So you have just dumped all the reports inside a centralized repository without mentioning any metadata that will help you classify these reports in the language they are written in. So that's a huge task. Even if you have a fleet of employees who can just transcribe all these tasks, you cannot do that easily because you need to go through all the documents and you don't know which language they are written in. Suppose somebody gives me a report that is written in Marathi or Punjabi, I may not recognize it at the first place, right? I may have to ask somebody else. He'll tell me this is written in something else. Then I'll pass it to the other person who is skilled in that, who can transpile this particular script into English. It's a lot many tasks for us to do. So how do we, so we wanted a mechanism to classify all these reports in the language they are written in and store it inside the folder. And the folder name would be the language in which they are written in. So that, if somebody is assigned to convert all the, all the documents that are written in Kannada or Tamil, they will pick up all the records that are, all the feedback reports that are written in Kannada or Tamil from that respective folders and start translating all of this document back to English instead of worrying about, asking everyone which language this document is written in at the first place. So this is a solution we are trying to build. So let's solve it. So before solving it, let's create a few documents which has some text written in different languages. So first, let the first doc name be doc1 and give the name, write something in English. So this hello. So what I'll do next is I'm going to create another document called doc2 and just go back to Google to help me translate stuff. So hello in English, so hello in Hindi. I'm gonna copy that and I'm gonna close doc1. I'm gonna open doc2 and save it over there. Then I'm gonna translate it to Kannada. I'm gonna copy it, create another document, and text document, and store this over there. I'm gonna open it. You can save. So I have 3 documents written in 3 different languages. So the next thing I have to do is that I have to store it in a centralized document repository. So for this purpose, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a Logic app inside our resource. I'm going to create a storage account to store all of this inside a blob storage container. So I'm going to search for storage accounts. I got the storage account. I'm going to create a new storage account over here. I'm going to give it as MSFT. I'm going to select the resource group at RG MSFT. Reactor. And I'm going to select the storage name as MSFT reactor. This name, you can give the name anything over here. Just make sure that you're keeping everything in small case and you don't have any special characters over there. I'm going to just click on review plus create to quickly set up our storage account so that we can start uploading our files quickly. So it passed a validation check. So let's click on create to provision this particular storage account. So once this particular storage account is created, we'll create 2 containers. So in one container, we'll have all these files uploaded, in the manner they are right now. We aren't going to classify anything or mention any metadata about, which language they are written in. Then we'll create another container in which, Our workflow will classify all these documents in the language they are written in and store it in this particular new container that we are going to create. So let's wait a bit while this particular storage account is being provisioned. Okay, so the storage account is provisioned. Let's go to the containers, create a new container over here. So click on plus container to create a new container. I'm going to name it as centralized dump. Since we are just dumping all the data without specifying anything, I just named it as centralized dump. I'm gonna go over here and upload all my files. So the files, where are the files? Doc1, Doc2, Doc3, perfect. I'm going to click on upload. So here I have uploaded all the files. So once I have uploaded all the files, I need to create one more container. So let's go back to the storage account. So this should be the container where we will be classify all the documents in the language they are written in and store it with the help of our the workflow or the logic app. So I'm gonna keep it as structured data. I'm just giving a random name. So we have created a storage account. So let's go back to our resource group again and create a new logic app. Also, we can just simply go over here and search for logic app and start creating one. Logic apps. Add a logic app on consumption tab. Select the resource group at as I'm sorry, I was selecting my subscription before. Perfect. I'm gonna keep my logic app name as language based classifier. So again, we are not going to do anything about these settings and just click on review and create to create our logic app quickly. And create to start the provisioning of our logic app. So we have created, okay, our logic app is being provisioned. Let's wait a bit. Okay, so the logic app has been provisioned. So let's go to logic app designer. Let's click on logic app designer to go to logic app designer and start with a blank template as we did in the previous demo. So let's click on blank logic app. Since we want to classify all these reports in a particular interval in a well-defined manner, we are going to go for the recurrence trigger. Here what we want to do is that we want to process all the reports that are there in a uniform interval. Like every 12 hours, you'll pick all those files, classify them, and store it in a new container and remove them. Then again, after 12 hours, again you get all the new files that are added in the container and classify that. So I'm gonna go for the schedule trigger over here, the recurrence trigger of the schedule connector over here. So I've set the interval as let's give it as 10 minutes for the time being. But anyway, we can always start it as we want. We can just click on run trigger and start it. So the first action that we need to do is that we need to get all the files that are there inside our blob container. So how do we do that? So the blob storage container provides you with some of the actions to do that, to achieve what you need. So I'm going to search for blob over here, the blob connector. So let's click on blob connector and see all the actions that are over there. So I'm looking for an action called list blobs. So this particular action will help me to get a list of all the files that are there inside this particular container. So for that, you need to again create a connection because it is again a different service. So it's like one of the managed connectors. That's why you have to create a connection for that. So this is a one-time process. So we had created this particular storage account just now, MSFT Reactor app. I'm going to select that and give this particular a name, testing demo. And click on create to create a connection, for our Logic app to connect with our storage account. So once it is created, we need to define our container name over here so that it'll get all the list of files that are there inside our container. So I have to select the containers. So the container is nothing but the folder here. So the container name was centralized dump. So let's select that. So let's not do anything over here and add a for each loop. Now what we need to do is that we need to loop through all the files that are there, and whichever file is written in whichever language, we first identify that and then store it inside a folder inside the new container, that is our standard data container, in the inside the folder of the language they are written in. For that we need to iterate through all the files, right? To iterate through all the files, we need to go for the for each action. So it is a part of the built-in connector. So inside control, you will see something called the for each control. So this is the particular action. So the output is like you're taking the result that is given by the list blob. So list blob provides you with the list of all the files that are there inside the blob connector. So let's take this value. So you've taken the value. Now you need to get all the content that is there inside this particular blob. So let's see. Since we have three blobs, it's going to iterate through each of the three blobs. The blobs in the sense three documents or feedback reports. So we need to get the content of what is written inside the file to detect the language they are written in. So for that, again, we will be using one of the actions of our blob storage connectors, which is get blob content. So this particular content, get blob content will be the action using which we can get all our what we say all the data that is written inside a particular blob or a document that is present inside our container. So we have to specify the path over here. So since in the for each loop we have specified the value, so this value is nothing but the list of the blob that is written by this particular action. Here you will get all the data associated with each of the file that is inside the container. So it's like you're looping through a particular object from a list of objects. So when you iterate through that, you will get all the properties that are associated with the object, right? So it's pretty similar to that particular context. So here you have to define the path of the blob. So the file's path in over here as the blob. So after specifying the path, it will be able to get all the data that are written inside or the content that is present inside this particular file. So the next step would be to detect the language. So that's an interesting part. How would we detect the language? So Azure does the thing pretty gracefully and helps us to not go through all the AI and ML stuff to get this work done. We can just simply call action called detect language. So I have searched, just wait a bit. So this is a part of the text analytics connector. So you have something called the detect language action over here. So using this detect language action, we are going to detect the language in which the content inside this particular blob is written in. So again, since it is again what we say different service, so you have to again create a connection, and it also needs a few set of what we say information to go ahead with. Like in the Outlook one, we had to sign in and authorize a Logic app to work around send mails and work around a bit to successfully complete the workflow. Here you need to provide the API key and the endpoint. So site URL is nothing but your text analytics resource endpoint, and account key is nothing but your API key. So I have already created a text analytics resource. So I'm going to go over there and search for it. Oh, just a moment. I'm going to search for my text analytics resource to get my what we say the API key and endpoint. So text analytics. Okay, I can just go to the cognitive services one. Here you will see a list of all the cognitive services I have provisioned before. So here is the text analytics resource. You can always create it, but just to save time, I've already created it. Now I need to go to keys and endpoint to get my API key and the endpoint. So I'm going to copy the endpoint from over here and paste it in the site URL. Then I'm going to copy the API key and paste it over here. And then the work is done almost over here, right? Okay, I forgot to create the connection. Sorry for that. Just give me a moment. Right, is on. I'm going to click on create to create this connection. So now this particular detect language action will ask us to provide the content or the text that on basis of which you want to what we say detect in which language it is written in. So this document ID is something that you have to create it. It's a unique identifier of the document. So I'm going to give it as the ID of a blob. Then you need to provide the content. So the content is nothing but the file content that is being returned from this particular action. So I have specified the file content. So here also you can this one more thing here also you can see all the things that are being shared by each particular action. So the list blob action provides you with the resource name and all other things, and with the get blob content action you are getting the file content. So the purpose of this action is to give you the content is to read the content that is written inside the particular file and provide you the content. So it is giving you the content. So here also what you can do is that you can also specify the country they are written in. This report was written in, and it will help the detailed language to detect language action to predict the language in which it was written in a bit easily. So we have done everything that was necessary, what we say, to detect the language. So the next step associated would be to again loop through the result that was provided by the detect language action. So for that, again, we are gonna add a for each action over here. So go to control for each, and then select the documents. So detailed language action provides a list of documents with the response that it has. So you need to iterate through that. But by default, but since we are only parsing through one particular document, so we are going to get only one particular document over here. But still, you need to iterate through that. So yeah, I have defined the document. Now the task is that we need to create a new blob.
check करे बुधाएं ती कल वानी करे डडी डेनिंग पाइंदे.
Are you trying to ask something? Okay, so let's move on to the next step. So we have read the content, detected the language in which the content was written in. Now now the task is that we need to create a folder with the language this particular file was written in inside our structured data container. So how will we do that? So to do that, again, we'll use one more action provided by the Azure blob storage connector, that is create blob. So in the create blob, we need to define the file path, right? So this file path is nothing but your container. So we wanted to store the report on the basis of the language they are written in inside structured data. So I'm going to select that. So that will be the container. Then you need to specify the blob name. So the blob by default blob doesn't has this folder convention kind of a thing. Like you cannot have a folder inside of which you want to store your files. So but logically you can create a folder and store all your files. So what I'll do is that we wanted to create a file by the name of the language. So I'm gonna use the language use the name that is being shared by the detect language action. So I'm going to use that. Then what I'm going to do is that I'll add a slash over here. Then I'll add the blob name. So that was the initial name of the report. So you can see that we got it from the list blob action. So I've added the name. Sorry. Okay, so here I have added a slash, as you can see. So using this, you can logically create a folder. Like you can logically partition things like first your language name would be there, then your folder. So visually you'll be able to see that, but internally there's no folder structure in blob storage. So you need to also store the file content, right? Because again, you need to translate it. You're not using any AI services to translate it. You have resources who are gonna translate by taking these files, reading and going through the files and translate them, right? So this is all that we need to do to create a document classifier based on the language they are written in. So let's click on save. And then we'll manually run our workflow, manually run our workflow. For that, I'll just, okay, let's go to the overview section and see whether it runs, because these triggers actually run every time you save. So with recurrence trigger, this is one problem. It's not a problem, it's kind of a feature kind of a thing. So if you're using a workflow that has a recurrence trigger, every time you save it, it just start for the first time. So as you can see, it has already done a lot of steps. Okay, there was an error somewhere. Yes. Sorry, just a minute. Okay. It was able to do all the steps. Next step failed. Okay, since we had only one loop, that's why it was able to do it like this. Okay, let's check at the blob storage what happened. I'll go to the storage account that I had created. I'll go to the containers and the structured data and see. Okay, so we had written the documents in 3 different languages. One was in English, one was in Hindi and Kannada. So let's see. So here we have the folder structure as well. Like inside this particular language, we want to upload something. So let's see what doc1 is written in. I'll just download it and open it and show it to you folks. So that's hello. So that's written in English. So it's stored it in stored correctly, right? So let's see the next document that's written in Hindi. So it classified the folder name as Hindi. So this particular record should be written in Hindi. So let's open it. Again, it's written in Hindi. That's great. So let's go to this folder and see for Kannada what happened, whether it predicted it rightly or did something go wrong. So I'm gonna open the document and it's written in Kannada. Somebody can verify it. Who knows this language plainly. So that's all for the demo. I'll go back to the slides and let's go for the Q&A.
Hello, Aswat.
Yes.
This is Jnanasagar. Okay, you have created the file name like language / old file name only, but we are getting that folder only language name only. Then where is that file name?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat again?
After text analysis, you are creating the blob storage. The folder name is called language / then you are creating that document name. Is correct?
Right. So that is the name of the blob.
Okay, you mean you are getting name of the folder or you are getting name of the file?
See. In blob storage, there is no concept of a folder, but you can logically partition documents inside a folder by adding the name of the folder you want preceding the slash. After that you can put your your file name. So what you'll do is that all the files which starts with the folder name slash, it will categorize everything inside that particular folder. It will logically group them over there.
Okay, fine. And you have created the API for text analysis. It is a free one. We can get it in Azure, or we have to pay something.
It depends. I'm using the free tier. So there is one free tier in which you can send 5,000 requests per month, I guess. So I was using the free tier.
Okay, thank you. If possible, if you explain about Logic Apps license things, if you can able to try.
It has a per action billing. I can, I'll recommend you to go to, Azure TCO to, check more about it. So any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ashirwad. I have joined little late, but just want to know, like, this video will be available for everyone, right? Recording, you have recorded the session, I think, so it will be available for everyone.
I hope it will, right, Rasmita?
Yes, Ashirwad. It is being recorded.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi,
Yeah.
Ashirwad. Hi, Peter. First of all, thanks a lot for such a great session. And I would like to say the problem statement which you have taken up for understanding the logic app is really awesome. Thanks a lot for this kind of great session. I would like to understand two things from you, Ashirwad. So, yes, there is some articles available over the internet, but we have this standard plan and we have this consumption plan. And as far as my understanding is like, if you are using Logic App, you would be charged on the basis of like how many actions and how many triggers are being, how many times it is being called. So you actually get charged on the basis of that. So then how there is difference between the standard and the consumption plan for Logic App? So that's one thing I want to understand. Yeah, maybe in the next question I would take after this. Yeah, can you help me understand this, Ashirwad, please?
Sure, man. Thank you for your kind words. And to be honest, even I'm a bit confused with that. This consumption one is the standard one. I guess, with the standard one, you can, run what we say, your Logic app runs in the same, what we say, the runtime as that of your Azure function. So this is one thing that I read, but I'm not pretty sure about this. So I may not be the right person to answer it right now, but give me some time. I'll get back to you.
Sure, no
The
problem.
pricing actually remains on action itself. So I don't think the pricing part would be pretty different, but I'll again come back to you with that. Just give me some.
Sure. Thanks a lot for that, Ashirwad. I have one more question which I want to understand from you, Ashirwad. So we
Sure.
have this. So I am using API management in order to. I have like made a couple of Logic apps in my organization. I'm using API management in order to fire like sending requests to Logic app over there, and I was trying to I was trying to validate the query parameters over there within the Logic app. So is there a mechanism to validate query parameters directly within the Logic app? Can help.
These are a bit of complex tasks. So I would recommend you get those query parameters, you assign it to a variable, or else and then fire a function, which will validate that, and this function will do all the regex kind of a thing that you want to do, and then return whether the validation was correct or not. If the validation was correct, then it will return an output, like the output that you have, or else you can take the output from the first request itself, like the query parameters that your particular request trigger actually got, and pass it to the next workflow. But if your function says that if the validation failed or something, you can stop the workflow over there itself by sending a response to gracefully handle it. So this is one mechanism that I would recommend. But does it solve your problem, or did I miss something?
So Ashirwad, there is still one property is existing where if you're taking HTTP request, you can validate your schema. After validating the schema, you can actually do a manual kind of, or using a variable control using regex, the validation that is still existing in Logic App.
That's great. Thank you, Sudarshan, for filling in.
But that is for the
Ashirwad, Rajesh here. So through Logic App, can we connect on-premises database and get the fetch the record? Is it possible?
Yes, it's possible. Actually, there's one thing called integrated service environment or something like that, using which you can do that.
So you can do it using integrated runtime. One thing you need to install in your system so that it will give you an URL and that can fetch it out directly to Logic App. It's possible. It's there already.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Sudarshan.
So Ashirwad, I have one question actually. So currently, whatever the flow you had shown it out, if I just resave that one again, so it will again create another time. Means my money goes again the action will be again executed, because those files which is already being processed, it did not require to be processed. It need to move some out to some other.
Right. I was supposed to delete it, but due to the lack of time, I didn't add that particular action. But yeah, spot on. We have to do that.
Yeah, one more thing is that I'm having something not to this demo one. So assume there is an API there. I need to bring some OData and need to connect to that MongoDB, not with Cosmos DB. So is it any connector you have come across that can help out, or a kind of custom need to be written?
I haven't come across this particular scenario, but I think we can do that with the Cosmos DB actions. Like if you're using Cosmos DB as your NoSQL solution, then it should be possible to do it.
Yeah, I heard somewhere that or read article there is no direct connector existing, but using through Cosmos API you can do it out.
Right.
Have you come across something like OData need to fetch and it need to go to the MongoDB API, not Cosmos DB API, Cosmos DB?
I'm sorry, Sudarshan, I haven't come across this scenario, but I'll definitely give it a look and get back to you. Just we can connect later on Twitter, or else you have my email ID. So you can just drop over there and we will just connect sometime after the call and discuss about it.
Yeah, sure. That's actually, thank you for a great session. The fundamental is really good. Actually.
Perfect. Thank you.
So Sudarshan, just one question from my side. So I mean, now how to do the CSD for the Logic app?
So there are 2 or 3 ways you can do it. Is it one way is that you can just create it out here itself in a portal itself. You take it out, that parameter file as well as your the flow file, the template file, and you keep it in an ARM template pointing to that one. So if you do any check-in, it will do it out. The other way is that there is a PowerShell or a Visual Studio solution is there. If you ping me, or then I can give you that solution. You just keep it those template files in your folder. It can take care of your
And
deployment.
what about the authentication that is happening, say on Office 360, and then the cognitive service that we have taken the account key, right? So
Yeah,
how we
account
will
key.
pass
What
that?
you do will that you just keep it out those in your key vault and tell your Logic app to go to that to take care through that key vault. So you did not require to do that one.
Yeah. Okay. Currently we have used directly. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go with a key vault and ask your key vault and give permission to your key vault to go to your key vault, means go to your key vault. This Logic app will go to key vault and it will fetch it out details. One authenticator that this is the right app which is given authentication. Then so that the flow will go away normally.
Yeah. So in one Logic app we can create in one Logic app application, right? We can create multiple logic, right?
Yes, you can create multiple. You can create parent to child. You can create an orchestration from one Logic app to move to other Logic app. It's possible.
Yeah. So I mean, all those Logic app are referring the same managed entity, or it will be different for everyone?
Uh, can you come a little bit clear about that one?
I'm saying that because I mean, there is a managed entity concept, right? User defined managed entity or Microsoft defined managed entity. So, I mean, like so suppose I have a one logic application, right? And inside we have multiple flows, logic apps, right? So
Mhm.
all those are referring with the same managed entity, or it will be the different managed entity for every flow.
No, the thing is that, again, I'm telling. So assume it, I'm creating something. There is a ticketing API is there. So if a ticket is created, it need to go to a particular team, right? My email need to be created, or DL need to be created. My group need to
No,
create a
no, no.
deleted.
So basically, how do I integrate a Logic app with my Key Vault? So for that, I need the manage entity way, right? One of the ways manage
Yeah.
entity to integrate. So I'm talking about that thing actually. So it has a multiple manage entity, or it's a single manage entity, and there will be multiple flows that refers to that manage entity.
So I did not work with that one, but for through single entity, I had done with multiple one.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Sudarshan. Yeah.
Thank you, Sudarshan, for answering. You seem to be an subject matter expert in Logic App.
No, just I'm learning starting this Logic app. So I got an idea to get it out some data, do
Just
it kind of.
sorry to interrupt, but one more question. So currently, how do we make sure that whatever we are doing, I mean, is there any concept of private endpoint in Logic App or not? Because we don't want to go into the public network. We are using express route, right? And is there any way?
There should be one. It's
So
quite possible.
to do that one, the one of the best approach I will tell you to you go through the APIM, so that and you can add it your APIM key as well as your OAuth authentication there, so it will take care of that one.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the private endpoint. I'm not talking about the auth2 or something like that. I'm talking about a private endpoint because I don't want. See, portal.azure.com is a public, right? And I'm a bit concerned about my data. I don't want to go traverse the data into the public network. So how it happens in Logic App? Like I need the private endpoint. When I say private endpoint, I mean it doesn't. If somebody from the public network, if he hit that endpoint, nothing will happen. But if it is in my network or it's a private one, then only me and my team and my company is only owning that, right? So that's what I want to understand. Yeah.
So for that one, generally in a company, the network security group actually people take care of that one. So they will open only those ports, and again, if it is inside your VM or VDI, they can open that port to the Logic app. So in that way, that can be taken care.
You can also use the
But there
closed.
is no virtual machine, right? Here,
You
I
can
mean,
also
like in this
use,
case, there is no machine.
Here, Harshit, this is Vivek. So you can also use the Azure Functions in a closed loop.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know about the Azure function. It is possible, but from Logic App, is it possible? Not. That's what the question is.
It's possible. It's possible.
Okay, okay, okay. Thanks, Sudarshan. Thanks, Vivek. Yeah.
Hi, Ashirwad, this is Ramakrishna here. Probably I will make it quick. I was just exploring Logic Apps for one of my use case. Its main purpose is to audit. Okay, audit as in let's say some database related changes happen in particular. Let's say some finance information. Would like to understand someone has changed from this value to this value. So can this be use case for Logic App connecting to SQL Server and send a mail to someone saying that someone has changed the data, kind of audit? Can this be use case?
We can do that, but I'm not pretty sure. Like SQL Server has a trigger in Logic App, but yes, you can definitely go a workflow, stating something like this.
Okay, I mean trigger can be captured via Logic App. That's what you said,
Right.
or we have to check.
For
Okay.
the SQL Server change, I just need to check like on every time some record changes in your SQL Server database. If you want to start a workflow, I'm not quite sure. Just give me a moment. I'll just check in and get back to you.
Yeah, Ashirwad, there is a connector is there which actually whenever any change occurs in SQL records, it will actually, you can take it out and you can just keep the status and send it out to a blob storage or a table storage to keep a logging. Otherwise, you can read out again to another table with the logs who had updated that record along with the email as well.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks.
Right.
That.
There are two triggers.
Any side effects, Sudarshan, because we are dealing with trigger, any side effects of that performance?
No, generally, so I used to follow a concept like whenever if anything is logging, if it is a single flow one, I used to keep it in a daily logs in a blob storage. The are two things. One is it is cheaper and easy to do that one. So might be the cost will be a little bit more because you are adding more connectors to that one. So and actually Microsoft charges as per the connectors you are being keeping that one.
Okay, so the trigger connector is it a separate one? Is it?
Yeah,
it's like an action, right, Sudarshan?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this was something that I wanted to share with you. So
thanks.
Thank you. So there was something, I am writing a book right now. So it's I hope you people are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So this is book that I'm writing. So to be honest, I'm not an expert in Logic App, but I definitely one in Azure Functions. So this is one of my book that is coming up later this quarter. Like it will be released somewhere around the fourth quarter. It's currently under review. So so this is the link where you can pre-order this book. So I hope you people like this book. This book also has a particular chapter in which we are calling in Azure Functions from a Logic App workflow to do a complex operation and get the workflow done. So I hope you people do order one if you want to get started with Azure Functions. So this is primarily written in C#. This a drawback kind of a thing you can say, because I'm not quite skilled in any other languages, to be honest. So this was one information that I wanted to share. So now we can go with the question that you have. The rest of the question that you have.
Yeah, hi, Ashirwad. Kapil here. First of all, I would like to thank for the whole session. This is the first time I'm going through with the Logic Apps. Now I found myself as more interest in this Logic Apps. So you or Sudarshan can help me to share the from where I can get the sources to read or explore this thing.
Yeah, there is there is a learning path in Microsoft Learn called Build Automated Workflow to Integrate Data and Apps with Logic App, and there's one more that was on Design Logic Apps. Sorry, I forgot the name. There are two learning paths actually in Microsoft Learn which you can get started.
Yes, I'll check it out. The first one is learning path, and second was is that what I found is I found some emails from the Microsoft that they are providing some free ebooks. like Kubernetes, SQL, Azure SQL, and all these things. So, is there any source from Microsoft?
So you can go and check it out the channel line where you can find it out most of the details. One and another thing is the better is you go to the MSDN sites like doc.microsoft.com.
Okay.
You will find it out very good articles there itself.
Okay, thank you so much, Sudarshan, and best wishes for your books, Ashirwad.
Thank you, Kapil. There was one more point I wanted to add. The Logic App teams, the product team of Logic App actually have a dedicated YouTube channel where you can also find the content. And regarding the book, I don't think there's any dedicated book for Logic App, but obviously there are a lot many content like Sudarshan mentioned. So Vivek is a Microsoft guy. He can guide us better with the content. Like, do they have any dedicated book for Logic App?
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Kapil. Thank you, Sudarshan, again for helping me out.
Thank you.
I will have to take a look at it. I am not sure there is a book for Logic Apps, but definitely there is MS Learn modules around Logic Apps, and Docs is very rich. So if you go to docs.com and you can find Logic Apps, all the help you required. So there are a couple of tutorials and sample code and all those things are available there.
Okay. Thanks, Vivek.
Thank you, Vivek. Any more questions? I think there are no more questions. Is there? Okay, it's over to you, Vivek and Rashmita. You can carry it forward now.
Thank you, Ashirwad, and thank you all for joining us today. Please do share your feedback with us. It will help us curate topics that suit a better audiences. And thank you all once again. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you everyone for joining in. Have a happy weekend. Take care and stay safe.
Thanks. Happy weekend.
You too.
Thank you all.